Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 298 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. It's Blue Jays Talk for All, brought to you by JaysFromTheCouch.com. Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome back for another week of Blue Jays Talk. I'm your host, as always, Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at JFtC. I want to thank you all for tuning in for another week. We really appreciate it. You find us everywhere, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or the audio version. You also find us there as well. Give us a subscribe and a rate and review, and we would be forever in your debt. As well, you can tune in live on the YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter programs, and you can even send your questions or comments or your whatevers. We've had a lot of different comments, and we deeply appreciate each and every one of them. So if you're available Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, hop on the show, give us a comment, and all of that stuff. And you know what? You can always reach out to us the old-fashioned way. You can send us an email at info@jaysfromthecouch.com. Hit us up on Twitter at jaysfromcouch, or Facebook page, everywhere. There's all kinds of ways to talk to us, and you all use them, and we thank you for it. We've got a great episode for you this week. Lots to talk about. Things are starting to turn around for these there Blue Jays. And to help me talk about all of that, I've got host of the On Feck Circle, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the Feckless Wonder himself, Steve Feck. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Shaun. I'm kind of torn about the Blue Jays turning things around this weekend, because literally Lourdes Gurriel and Kirk single-handedly sent my fantasy team down to my fifth straight defeat. So I'm kind of torn here.
It's true, and you also picked the Angels as the surprise winner of the West, and that didn't help their cause this weekend either.
True. But I mean, people know I'm a dope as far as things that I say, but fantasy, this one hurts. That hurts. So.
You're too hard on yourself, but we can talk about that later, because we've got hosts of the Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Shaun. Good evening, Steve.
We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and Karen's super pumped because the Blue Jays are back in the win column, and there's a lot of happiness. 5, that's right. I thought she was telling me to stop talking there for a second.
I thought it was talk to the hand, but yeah, okay, that's okay.
We'll get there eventually. At some point, we're on episode 298. Maybe at some point we'll all get on the same page here. We do this long enough. Won't take me as long to catch up to what Karen is throwing down there. But we have a great episode, an awesome one, Blue Jays Talk for all, because everybody's got an opinion. Our MLB Minute segment is back. We're going to look at the Blue Jays' Pythagorean win-loss record, and maybe even how that translates across baseball. We'll also lead to a discussion about the Blue Jays' 40-man roster. Do they really have the depth required to make a playoff run? Do they even have the depth to get to a playoff run? We'll talk about that. And, of course, our fake news segment is back. And before we get to all of that, I want to take a moment. June 2nd, this Thursday, is the ALS Day, if you want it, Lou Gehrig Day in Major League Baseball, where everybody takes a moment to raise awareness, raise some funds, raise some hope for those dealing with ALS, for the victims and their families. And Jays from the Couch, we've been working on this for a while. We're doing our little part. We have a page where you can go to. If you go to jaysfromthecouch.com, scroll down the side there, you can find a direct link, or you can go to support.alsevents.ca/jaysfromthecouch, and you can make a charitable donation, tax deductible. Fire your money right into a great cause that goes to the ALS Society of Canada. Or if you're somebody who likes something for their money, don't worry, we got you covered as well. Head to Redbubble and look for Jays from the Couch, and we've got a lot of merchandise there. We've got mugs and hats and sweaters and shirts and everything that a Jace from the Couch follower deserves. And 100% of those profits go directly to the ALS Society of Canada. So I encourage you all, help us out. And then one day, somebody somewhere will be able to say, I beat ALS. And it's going to be friggin' amazing. So help us out. Okay, we've got lots to talk about actually this week, and Christian Rao's joining us as well, watching on YouTube. Happy Monday, Jace from the Couch. Well, you know what, Christian? Happy Monday to you and your new bundle of joy. I hope things are going well with your soon-to-be Orioles fan. That's all I'm going to say. But congratulations to you, Christian, you and your family. I hope you're all doing well and all of that. And of course,
about Adley Rutschman. Actually, that's who I thought you were talking about. But
his new bundle of joy.
yeah. So, but that's right. He's a proud father. So
that's right. He may have named his child Adley. We don't know yet. But and Sarah's watching on Facebook as well. Good to see everyone, Sarah. It's great to be seen by you. Thank you so much. And I probably should mention that if you're tuning into this podcast, obviously you're a baseball fan, and to some degree, and you should probably follow the Rao Report for his Major League Baseball podcast as well. He does great stuff. He's an excellent host. He knows his stuff. So check him out as well. That's the Rao Report. Okay, so we're going to lead off this episode with our MLB Minute. And if you're new to Jays from the Couch's podcast, or you've forgotten, don't worry, I'll remind you. We each get 1 minute to discuss the topic of, well, really our choosing. Maybe we'll throw it out there to let other people decide our 3 whole minutes of podcasting if we feel extra dangerous. But this time we're going to talk about Pythagorean wins and losses. Steve had an excellent post up at Jason from the Couch, the MLB Minute, cleverly named, of course, and where he discussed the Pythagorean win losses. And the Blue Jays are actually an interesting story in that, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you. I will give you 1 minute, and I will fire up ye old timer. And when I say go, you are on the clock, sir. So, Pythagorean win-loss, Stephen, go.
Thanks, Sean. Now, no statistic tells the whole story of a baseball team season. Pythagorean win-loss percentage or theories really does kind of give you a glimpse about what might be going right. Maybe if you're playing in good luck, or what might be going wrong, bad luck. The Blue Jays have a negative run differential, so that affects what their Pythagorean win-loss theory is. And technically, if you went by Pythagorean win-loss things, the Jays would not be a playoff team. So there is work that has to be done, and perhaps the Blue Jays front office needs to pay attention to that.
You still got 12 seconds. This never happens.
Everything I have to say is either nasty or really sarcastic, so I'm going to I'll yield my time to the floor.
Every week I try and mix it up with the sound that plays there, and that was not. I just realized how that could probably sound. Just so, Steve, so you know, I have the same one for Karen.
Hey, yeah.
Wasn't calling you a Muppet.
No. I thought you sound. That's how I sound when I talk to him. But that's okay.
No, I would never make fun. You're just you're just getting over COVID. I can't do that. So, all right. So, Karen, you are up. Pythagorean win-loss. 1 minute. Begin.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not paying all that much attention to it. I really don't believe that in reality the Blue Jays are actually worse than their record. If anything, I think they're better than their record. I think they have amazing major league talent, which is established at the major league level. I mean, their starting rotation was projected to be very good, and for the most part it has been. Their lineup was projected to be very good, and if anything, they've underperformed. So So we've seen in the last 5 games that it looks like, knock on wood, the offense is finally waking up. And I do expect that to be much more of the norm going forward. So if anything, looking at, I'd heard of this Pythagorean baseball thing, and I never really knew how it was calculated until I read your article, Steve. So thanks. And yeah, I mean, if anything, I expect it to keep getting better, basically.
All right, and my 1 minute starts. I'm checking our messages here. So Sarah's watching at home on Facebook, and her first comment was love, then that rocks, and then that tone may or may not be my alarm on my phone. Oh, Sarah, you and I are very similar. All right, my 1 minute begins. Okay, yeah, so in all honesty, I really don't put much stock into the Pythagorean win-loss. And I know Steve, when Steve talks about just about any metric, he doesn't put a whole lot into that. But I prefer to see what, how they're playing on the field as far as whether or not they're a better team or a worse team. We know how the offense was supposed to be. It just hasn't done it yet. Are they better than their record? Well, yes, because they have that ability, but they are their record at the end of the day. That it is what it is. But I will also point out that last year their Pythagorean win-loss was way better than what they were, and they still missed the postseason by a game, right? So while it may be useful, and while it may be a good way to say, hey, are they performing or are they underperforming? We need to kind of just accept it that it is in isolation. It works for a brief moment, but then when you really start peeling back all the layers and everything, it kind of every time every time I hear that, I laugh. But yeah, so at the end of the day, it's a metric, and in isolation, it doesn't really tell you the whole story. And I think, Steve, that's kind of, we've brought it back full circle here. That's really kind of your point, is that it's a useful metric, but it's one of many. And I think that's the issue with baseball. That's what makes baseball so great. First of all, is that, that you can, as much as people are trying to quantify everything, you can't. It's very much a game that is played on the field and enjoyed on the field, and there's just some things you just can't quantify. And Karen dropped out, but she's back, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I like about the Pythagorean win-loss calculation is that at its essence, it's run differential. Teams that score more runs than they allow are going to have a better Pythagorean win-loss percentage. When your team is outperforming what the Pythagorean win calculation shows, it is a flag saying, okay, don't panic, but there's something that's not firing. The offense, the bullpen. And we're not talking about the back end of the bullpen. We're talking about the bullpen in its entirety. And that really has attributed to the run differential more than anything. Everybody keeps saying, oh, what a great bullpen and everything. There are holes. And we've seen that in this series here. That's where Pythagorean win-loss theory should be looked at by baseball fans to say, you know what? Maybe we do need to go out and get another bat or another arm or whatever it is. That's why I really used that in the MLB Minute this week to kind of say, you know what? Just something to think about.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. The bullpen needs work. But the other thing I would point out, too, is that the Blue Jays' Pythagorean win-loss comes from the fact that they played so many one-run games. So wins or losses, you win by 1 run. It's a win, yes, but it's only 1 run. So that run differential doesn't have a chance to kind of truly reflect how good a team is. Again, though, I mean, we're talking about one way of measuring a team, right? And we could dive in. We could spend all day talking about the Pythagorean win-loss, but we do want to move on because the Blue Jays are starting to turn things around, and thank goodness. I got to tell you, because if it had gone much longer, I don't know how much more I could have taken, only because I feel like the rest of the world is losing their minds, and that's what drives me the craziest, is that mentality that they're a terrible team and all of this stuff, and I can't with that stuff. However, the answer to the questions or the problems or the issues that they're having are not easily solved. If this was a team that was just missing a bat, then that's an easy fix. Sure, it'll cost, but it's an easy fix. If they were missing a starter, that's an easy fix. However, they're not. They're just simply not hitting. And so when you look at that, okay, well, how do they fix that? Well, you just hit better. Great advice. That's awesome. Thanks. But in reality, where are these substitutions coming from? And so that's where we're going to spend the meat of our show talking about. But before we get there, I want to do a special. So I hope for all of our listeners and for Karen and Steve, just bear with me here for a moment. I owe a huge shout out to Marley and Lawson watching in Kentville, Nova Scotia. Rachel, their mom, they were watching live as a family for the first time of Lawson, Marley, and Rachel. These beautiful twins have discovered baseball and baseball statistics because of our show, and I want to send them a huge thank you. They are beautiful, beautiful people, and I'm deeply, deeply touched that they tune in every week religiously. And just as a side note, Marley and Lawson, be sure to check your mail soon, okay? I've got a little something coming for you to say thank you for tuning in every week. Kentville, Nova Scotia in the house. All right. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because how do you fix the Blue Jays problems? Well, typically you look outside the organization, but for the Blue Jays, they have to. If you look at their 40-man roster, we're talking about a list of names that offers no help in regard to hitting. Okay, so we have their 40-man roster currently consists of the following 6 hitters: Raymel Tapia, Bradley Zimmer, Vinny Capra, Otto Lopez, Leo Jimenez. I'm saving those 5 first. So I'm going to save the last one. Regardless, those 5, none of them offer anything in the way of hope for this season. So I want to first of all talk about, Karen, I'll start with you. Zimmer and Tapia, they're on the big league club. And yes, Tapia chipped in the other day, which yay. However, Karen, are we really looking at any type of reinforcement from these two?
Yeah, I mean they are what they are. And when the Randall Richard trade was announced, and I looked into who Tapia was, I was reasonably hopeful in getting him because I thought his skill set sounded very complementary to the existing players. I thought he brought something very different, like kind of like a 2022 Ben Revere almost. And I mean, he's shown flashes of being helpful. Overall, he really hasn't been as consistent as I was hoping. I was looking up his stats. He's actually been better in the last week or two than his overall. Still not great or anything. But yeah, and I mean, Bradley Zimmer, people, I'm on Twitter way too much, and so many people are like, why is Zimmer even on this roster? They've got to DFA him now. And my belief, and what I don't think they really see it and understand it in the same way, he was brought onto this team as a defensive replacement that the Blue Jays expected, and they have had, and I think they will have a lot more leads late in games. And the purpose of Zimmer was to bring him into the game defensively in the outfield to protect a lead when they have it. The unfortunate thing is that, I'm sure they didn't foresee Hernandez needing as much time on the IL as he did. I don't know if they knew how much time Springer would need just DHing, never mind not playing in games. And then Gurriel's had some hamstring stuff. So, I mean, the 3 of them collectively missed more time in the outfield than I'm sure they expected. And that's why we've seen more of Tapia and Zimmer than they probably intended. And it's unfortunate. They're being exposed because they're not really, in a perfect world, they're not really everyday players on a championship caliber team.
Right. And I think you hit it right on the head there. And Steve, before I throw it to you, I think Karen brings up an excellent point that it really, when the Blue Jays were bringing in these two guys, they actually traded for something they needed. They needed speed and they needed defensive upgrades. They were willing to let Randall Grichuk go. And as much as, you can go back and listen to previous episodes of this podcast, and as much as I've dumped on Randall Grichuk, let's be real, that he doesn't have zero value. And so they gave up on him to bring in something that they needed because it was a complementary piece. And as Karen said, now, Steve, we're seeing what happens when those complementary pieces are thrust into roles that they probably shouldn't be in, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then, Tapia is what he is. He's has much higher fantasy value, even hitting the way he does, than he does in real baseball. Another big thing, when you tie in Tapia and Zimmer, another thing that gets affected is Cavan Biggio. Cavan Biggio really would have benefited from at least a full month, if not longer, down at AAA, getting his rhythm, getting his confidence back before coming up and then being able to jump in and assume a larger role. The Blue Jays don't have that luxury because Zimmer and Tapia aren't hitting. I don't even want to talk about Capra. Literally, it's having a trickle-down effect throughout the roster. Maybe players are going to have to play more than they should, given lingering injuries such as with Hernandez and Gurriel. That has an effect on the field of play. So I think that's really where the depth issue has its most direct impact, is the fact that players are having to play out of their comfort level because there's no one else to bring up.
Agreed. That's right. You can't replace any of the Lourdes Gurriel or Teoscar Hernandez with an Otto Lopez, right? Like it doesn't work that way. And I think that's the real issue with that why people are so vehement that Bradley Zimmer and Tapia maybe shouldn't even be on the roster. But because the real issue for me is that the guys who should be on the roster and should be performing either aren't or are hurt. And Steve, you brought up a great point that I really thought that Biggio would be down in AAA for much longer. In fact, I wrote about how he's starting to turn things around, but it's okay. They're not going to call him up. They'll give him more time. And then like the next day, they bring him up, making me look like a total moron. However,
well, no, who's the moron? It's not you. It's the front office, who basically don't, they don't have the pieces there in place. And for a variety of reasons, they can't go out and get those pieces right now. So you can't say, writers that say Biggio is going to be down here and being, you are absolutely right. That's what should happen. Unfortunately, that they're left with no other alternatives but to bring him back maybe before he is ready. And before he really is back to the Cavan Biggio we all got to know in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, let's hope. And, but I think that this is what happens in baseball. And I think that people who potentially are the, more fair weather among us, I think when they see guys underperforming and then if Vladdy's not hitting, people aren't really going to say he shouldn't be on this team. If Bo Bichette is slumping, people aren't really going to say Bo Bichette should not be on the team. They may say he shouldn't be at shortstop, which I had a rather lengthy conversation about yesterday on the ball field. But that's a whole other issue. So you can't say that about guys like Vladdy or Bo or Springer. So you focus on guys who really shouldn't be on the team, or at least getting so much playing time. So a guy like Zimmer and Tapia will be, I guess, amplified right? Their presence will be amplified in times like the Blue Jays are seeing right now. Does that mean that Zimmer and Tapia are going to take a significant amount of playing time away from any of those people? Well, no, they're just giving it away at this point, right? And that's why you see Biggio coming back maybe too soon, maybe not too soon. Who knows? So when you look at that list of those five, Tapia, Zimmer, Capra, and Lopez and Jimenez. First of all, Jimenez is in Vancouver. So even if he was tearing it up in Vancouver, he's not going to be called up to the big leagues. That's just, it's not going to happen. So then even a guy like Otto Lopez, who, you know, we got a glimpse of previously, he's not hitting very well right now. You know, and injury may have had something to do with that. But the point is he's not performing. He's not hitting his way onto this big league roster. So they've got nobody that they can call up internally unless they go off the 40-man roster, in which case somebody's got to go. And that's why, you know, why I'm focusing on the overall 40-man roster. Go ahead, Karen.
Are you forgetting the Jays' number one prospect?
No, I left him for the end on purpose. And so that's a great segue.
Okay.
The one who is hitting is Gabriel Moreno. Now, the issue with him is he's lighting up AAA. He's on fire. He does not seem overmatched at all. And it's interesting because big AAA is a place where you're going to see more veteran-like pitchers trying to, you know, sneak a curveball by somebody or a slider or whatever. Whereas in AA, you're going to see the best that they have. Just here's my stuff, hit it. But AAA is a little more of a thinking person's at bat. And Moreno is not outmatched or overmatched, I should say, at all. So the next logical, if we're talking about this whole conversation, the next logical thing would be, well, that's a bat they can use. However, Karen, there is a logjam with Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen. So I guess, Karen, let's throw it to you then to weigh in on Moreno. Like, is there any point in even entertaining the idea that he could be an addition?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good question, such a loaded question, because if a part of the issue, and we talked about it earlier, is the fact that Springer, Gurriel, and Hernandez, who they expected to be the everyday outfield and to perform as well as we've seen them all, that they're all capable of in the past, that there have been, whether it's nagging injuries or injuries enough to get Hernandez on the IL, that the problem seems to be in the outfield in that way. So, I mean, if let's say you call up Moreno and they went with three catchers in the past, they could do so again in the future. But then what do you do about your outfield? Because you're not having Kirk or Jansen or Moreno play the outfield. So if you've still got that situation where you're short a body or two in the outfield, who plays out there? Like you're not improving upon the Tapia / Zimmer situation there. So I mean, as much as it's tempting, and who knows, they might end up doing it at some point, but I don't see that as the solution, unfortunately. And then we don't really know. I mean, he's doing great down there, and I hope he would be that prospect whenever he gets there, whenever he gets to the Jays, to say that, you know, yes, he adjusts to major league pitching and he helps a team with World Series aspirations, but it's a lot of pressure to put on a raw rookie.
100%. And I think if you're going to see Moreno, you're not going to see him in May. That's for sure. You know, like even if he is setting the world on fire and the Blue Jays are even performing even worse than they are right now, I don't think you see him.
So no.
That's well, no, you know what I mean, though. I was talking about the last little while here, but I still don't think you see him in June. And the other thing too is that carrying those three catchers, the three of Jansen, Kirk, and Moreno, it's not like one of them's a Zach Collins or you know, somebody who's, I hate to say it, but dispensable, right? These are three guys who, in one way or another, will be important to this team, whether it's playing, getting every day at bats, or if it's trade fodder, I'm looking at Alejandro Kirk, who needs to, kind of let's make sure he's firing on all cylinders. But Steve, I guarantee when Karen was talking about the outfield situation, I guarantee that a previous episode of the on-fec circle ran through your head, because I know you have an option. I knew it. So Steve, I'm going to throw it over to you, and I will allow even the off-the-wall feckless wonder idea. So have at it, buddy.
Okay. Why can't you work Vladimir Guerrero into the outfield rotation and play Alejandro Kirk at first base? Okay. Have Moreno there. This is all theoretical, but if the Jays still do not fire on all offensive cylinders, why not have Moreno come up in June and try something different? Everyone keeps saying, oh, Vladdy's too slow, Vladdy's too, muscular, Vladdy's too whatever it is. Vladdy Guerrero is an athlete, and he has incredible baseball instincts. I guarantee you within the space of 10 days at the most, he will be an average, if not above average outfielder. Not playing every single day, but, and then Moreno can then work in, getting up at bats where he's not wasting away on the bench. Kirk can play some first base. And now suddenly Tapia and Zimmer are back in the roles where they should be, where they're a late inning defensive replacement. I mean, people keep saying, oh, DFA Bradley Zimmer. Who are you going to bring up and play in the outfield if you do that?
Nobody. Well, now, see, here's the thing.
V for victory, V for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
I don't disagree that I'm sure he could learn it. And watching that arm, that's a Jesse Barfield kind of arm. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not going to totally toss it out, except I'm going to toss it out because the Blue Jays are a very analytics based team, and they've run the numbers. You can I'm sure there's a room full of whiteboards that have gone through all of the math and the physics behind Vladdy crashing into a wall is not only risking an injury, but it will set back the Rogers Center renovations a significant amount. So they just tossed that. They said, nope, we can't do that. But I joke, of course. That's a pre-fake news little tasty tidbit for you. Now, and of course, here's Christian Rao weighing in. Remember, folks, the Baltimore Orioles fan, Christian Rao. This is the second time I heard this argument for Vlad Jr. in the outfield, and I'm not against it and kind of want to see the experiment. I will tell you, I am against it, and I do not want to see that experiment. I think that there are other solutions that do not involve that drastic a move. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I say, if you are continued to struggle 2 weeks into June, it's not an experiment. It is a solution. Oh, it's a possible solution. It's not the solution. And quite honestly, especially, in this market where they keep extending how many pitchers are going to be on the roster, it's probably going to be like September 1st before they actually reduce the number of pitchers on a roster. I mean, with all these different things going on that they keep saying, oh, it's because of the lockout, trades are not going to be as easy to execute this year as they would have been last year. So if you've got someone with the supreme talent of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., why not try it? I mean, and again, this is, I know I'm not picking on Lourdes. I'm not picking on Teoscar Hernandez. Neither of those guys, despite being nominated for Gold Gloves on a regular basis, can be mistaken for Gold Glove outfielders. I think you make that chance. You take your number one prospect and say, okay, you're not going to play every day because we have Danny Jansen, but you can contribute with the bat. Kurt gets more regular turns between DH and first base. I think across the board, it is a solution that is not as far-fetched as you and Karen seem to think that it is.
And, I'll leave it at that. I think Biggio sees more time in the outfield before that happens, but go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. Yes, no, I just wanted to circle back, and Steve actually touched on the point that I was about to make. But assuming that they don't, for like the fourth time or whatever it is, extend the maximum number of pitchers that can be on a roster, then in about 2 weeks, we're going to see another position player. It's just a question of who that is.
Right, yeah, there's nobody. There's nobody that you can depend on to bring up. So you either have to
Unless they
overpay
go
it.
your route. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they can get Ichiro to come out of retirement or something. I guarantee you he could still play better than Tapia, but
he can pitch.
Anyway.
He was hitting 91, 92, pitching to in the minor leagues, to minor leaguers. He's hitting 91, 92 for Seattle.
Sign him right now.
Yeah, bring him back.
Sign him.
Yeah, we didn't sign Suzuki, so he's our designated Japanese outfielder.
Whatever it takes to not put Vlad in the outfield. That's all I can say. I just pictured like a Kool-Aid man type hole in the wall. Like just Anyway.
Pictured Chris Colabello 2.0. I'm sorry, he doesn't have the speed. Yeah, he doesn't have the speed to be an outfielder. I'm sorry.
George Bell didn't have the speed to be an outfielder. Joe Carter didn't really have the speed to be an outfielder, but they were good baseball players with great instincts, so they may do.
True. I think the real issue is that the Toronto's just not there yet. They're not that desperate that they have to try that. That's all. That's where I'm coming from. Yeah. Anyway, so we're just about out of time here, and of course, we all know what that means. It's time once again for our fake news segment. And again, if you're just tuning in, I want to kind of remind you, I'll give you a quick little refresher. We take our turns coming up with some fake news stories as a way of entertaining the masses, just to throw out some Blue Jays fun. Really, that's all it is. Every week, and we make it clear that it is fake Blue Jays news because you can't have that mistake being made. I can't afford a lawsuit. So anyway, without further ado, Jays from the Couch proudly presents fake Blue Jays news. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Sean. Well, we're talking about outfielders, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. had himself a breakout game versus the Los Angeles Angels on Sunday, going 2 for 3 with a pair of doubles and a 5 RBI performance, accounting for nearly half of the Jays' 11 runs scored. And then during a post-game interview with Hazel May, Gurriel shared through his translator that he has always seen the ball well at Angel Stadium and feels he is on the brink of breaking out this season based on what he did over the weekend. And Gurriel did go 5 for 9 last year with 5 RBIs over the 3-game series Toronto played in Anaheim. But a very interesting part of the interview with May did not make the Sportsnet post-game broadcast. Before the interview went live, Lourdes shared that he had spent more than an hour in the lobby of the team's hotel before Sunday's game with more than a dozen young fans who had mistaken the outfielder for Cruella de Vil, the villainess from the Disney film 101 Dalmatians. Now, given Gurriel's latest hairstyle and the hotel's proximity to Disneyland, you can understand the kid's confusion, though Lourdes' fun-loving personality would seem to be in stark contrast to that of a dog-hating DeVille. But Lourdes is a fan of the movie and all things Disney, so he played up the children's interest without breaking character. After talking with the kids in the lobby, Gurriel took the group to the hotel gift shop to buy them Disney-related toys and made sure to keep a stuffed Dalmatian for himself. When asked why May did not mention the heartwarming story during the live interview, a Sportsnet spokesperson shared the opinion that May hates it when all the focus is not on her and her stories, so she ordered the director to delete the footage. National media pundits and frustrated Blue Jays fans have wondered aloud all season why the Jays have failed to address the lack of left-handed bats for their lineup and arms for their bullpen. It's almost as if Ross Atkins is afraid to add left-handers of any sort to the roster. In a rare revealing sit-down interview with me for JaysFromTheCouch.com, the Toronto GM admitted just that. After putting up with my usual crap and criticism of his roster management, Atkins grew emotional when he stopped my line of questioning to confess that he is being traded for sinistrophobia, the obsessive fear of anything left-handed. Mark Shapiro and Rogers have been tremendously supportive over the past few months since the lockout. I came to the realization that my sinistrophobia had compromised my judgment when it came to the free agent signings and drafting I'd been doing. I drafted Gunnar Hoagland in the first round last year, knowing he would not be able to pitch this season. So when Oakland asked for him in the Chapman trade, I was so relieved. And while he did trade for Raimel Tapia in the Grichuk to Colorado deal, Atkins acknowledged he knew that Tapia couldn't hit. Atkins also admitted that through therapy and hypnosis, he had subconsciously sabotaged Kevin Biggio's career by moving him from second base into a utility role, and that he has forced Charlie Montoyo to overuse Tim Meza over the past 2 seasons. And that was a reaction to his phobia. Atkins denied the notion, though, that allowing Ryan Borucki and Andrew Velazquez to be the only southpaw options on the current roster was related to his treatment. Nope, Atkins says, they just suck much more than any of us realized. It'll be interesting to monitor if Atkins is able to trade for badly needed left-handed upgrades, or if he will need to rely on Shapiro and his staff to evaluate such options. Over to you, Shaun.
Wow.
And that's
Sinistrophobia.
That's why we say fake Blue Jays news, and that's why you can't sue us, okay? As much as you may want to sue me, you can't, because it's fake Blue Jays news.
Oh, man. Okay. In other news, winning 5 games in a row has the TTC overwhelmed. Not only are soaring, let me try that again. Not only are soaring oil prices costing everyone a fortune and making life more difficult, the transportation provider says that they are suddenly seeing an influx of travelers on the Blue Jays bandwagon, which is causing delays. In other news, the Anaheim Angels clubhouse staff recently said they've never seen a visiting team have so much fun in the clubhouse. Witnesses say they were acting like children. They were having so much fun. Not only did the Blue Jays turn the visitors' clubhouse into a dance party, they played Pin the Tail on the Donkey, which was won by an umpire since they operate with their eyes closed most of the time anyway. And one of the more popular games they played besides the limbo contest was who could hold their breath the longest. And it was a tie between a number of them, including manager Charlie Montoyo. George Springer was the first to be eliminated, and the reason everyone outlasted him was best explained by Montoyo. He said, "We're at an advantage because every time George does anything, we all hold our breath afraid he's going to get hurt." And that has been fake Blue Jays news. Fake. I always feel like I have to emphasize the fake part, like so in the interest of being honest, this is obviously inspired by the Saturday Night Live Weekend Update, and when they do it, they never have to explain anything. I feel like I have to explain it every 5 seconds, lest I be sued. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of episode number 298. I cannot believe we're almost at 300 of these episodes. And I want to thank Karen and Steve, as always, for giving up your time and helping me have some fun on Monday evenings, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Steve, I'm going to throw it over to you here. How can everybody follow you, and what's coming up on the OnFX Circle tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time?
Okay. Well, you can send your hate mail after that last fake news segment to fecklesswonder@jaysfromthecouch.com, or you can send me a tweet at fecklesswonder. On tomorrow night's OnFX Circle, we are going to talk a lot about the ALS awareness initiative with MLB. Our Blue Jays bedtime story won't be necessarily specifically Blue Jays related, but it is going to be related to Lou Gehrig and Major League Baseball's efforts to try to eliminate the scourge of ALS from the face of the earth. But we're also going to talk a little bit more about the Pythagorean win-loss percentage and exactly where the potential trouble spots might be that are causing the Blue Jays to skew lower than the actual wins they have put up. I mean, as of the weekend, the Jays are actually 4 games ahead of their Pythagorean win-loss projection. So,
well, It'll be a great episode tomorrow. I'll be there, obviously. I work behind the scenes, but I enjoy every episode. I even enjoy the bedtime stories. In fact, I think they might be my favorite part. Steve does a great job of the historical side of baseball and tying it in, of course, to our Toronto Blue Jays. So make sure you catch that tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you'll be thoroughly entertained and educated. Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Karen, over to you. Sunny side of the dome, 6 p.m. What you got for us?
Yeah, it'll be a much sunnier episode. Lots of great things to talk about because our Blue Jays are 9-3 in their last 12 games, and now that they're coming home, they're on a roll. And I do expect them to continue winning much more often than not. And actually, if anybody's interested, I just saw it pop up here on my husband's phone. White Sox place Cease and Graveman on the restricted list ahead of coming to Toronto. So there's two players they'll be without.
Cannot complain about that.
But and Luis Robert might need to test a second time negative because he just came off the COVID list. So if he doesn't get a second negative, I think that they're not as concerned about that because he's asymptomatic, but that's another guy that might need to be left behind.
Right. Could be a much different series, in all honesty, if that's the case. So thank you to Karen and Steve for joining me again for another week. I want to thank everybody watching at home on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We go live Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and you all find us and you comment, and I really appreciate that. Thanks to Christian. As always, his support is top shelf. It's next level. All right. And to Rachel, and a special shout out to Rachel's kids, Marley and Lawson. Thank you guys for your support. We're so touched that you found us and that you enjoyed what we put out there. Thanks, both of you, for tuning in. And don't forget to check that mail. So for Steve, for Karen, for Marley and Lawson, this is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at JFtC, reminding you, please donate when you can, help support our fight against ALS. And I'm hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.